Oracle Red Bull Racing. This is the team that holds the keys to the entire sport. Yet paradoxically, they are currently their own most dangerous opponent. The brilliance of the RB20, the technical genius that flows from Milton Keynes, and the sheer, relentless dominance of Max Verstappen have forged a dynasty that should, by all logic, be cruising into the sunset, untouchable and serene. Instead, Red Bull Racing is a political civil war disguised as a Formula One team. The engine is tuned for perfection, but the corporate atmosphere is toxic, poisoned by power struggles and boardroom intrigue that have nothing to do with apexes or tire compounds. Verstappen, the generational talent who makes all this possible, has been vocal about his demand. He needs silence. He needs to breathe. When a driver of his caliber starts speaking publicly about the environment rather than the performance, you know the foundation is suffering. What Red Bull needs right now is not a minor floor upgrade. They need absolute management and political stability. They require a decisive, uncompromising ceasefire in the boardroom. The internal battles, the leadership dramas, the corporate factionalism, the distracting political whispers involving key personnel must be ended, sealed off, and forgotten. The team's collective focus must be violently wrenched back toward the singular goal of racing, insulating the technical and trackside personnel from the constant corrosive noise. The technical team cannot function at its peak when every victory is shadowed by speculation about the next firing or the next headline. If the corporate mothership does not provide this ironclad stability and silence the internal critics, they risk alienating the one person who cannot be replaced. The greatest F1 team in the world is currently playing Russian roulette with its own success, and the consequences of the chamber being loaded are catastrophic. The implosion of the dynasty and the potential loss of their champion. They are simply too powerful to be undone by anything other than their own egos. The winning stops the second the internal fighting overtakes the external competition. Mercedes-AMG Petronas F1 team. The fall from grace has been uniquely agonizing, not because of a lack of effort, infrastructure, or budget, but because of a stubborn two-year adherence to a flawed technical philosophy. For nearly a decade, Mercedes built cars that were untouchable, platforms so stable and forgiving that they made everyone else look pedestrian. They trusted their engineering dogma implicitly. Then came the ground effect era in 2022, and that trust transformed into blind faith. They committed to the zero-pod concept, betting on their own brilliance to make a fundamentally different philosophy work, while their rivals quickly converged on what actually generated downforce. The result? 3 years of fighting with a car that is a temperamental, unpredictable beast, wildly oscillating between brilliance and mediocrity. They've been stuck in a cycle of micro-corrections, chasing tenths on a foundation built on sand. Lewis Hamilton's decision to leave, driven by the desire for one last competitive car, serves as the ultimate indictment of their inability to decisively course-correct. What Mercedes desperately needs right now is a fundamental car concept reset. This isn't about moving the mirror mount or tweaking the wing end plate. It's about a complete and total philosophical purge of the current technical DNA. The team needs to accept that their current design paradigm is a dead end. They must look at what works for Red Bull and McLaren and commit to an intelligent convergence using their superior facilities, wind tunnel, and budget to perfect a proven concept, rather than trying to reinvent the wheel for the sake of originality. It requires a humility that has been absent in their post-2021 period, a willingness to admit the premise was wrong. The team is still an operational powerhouse. They just need a proper weapon to wield. If they cling to the ghost of their old dominance and fail to deliver George Russell a stable, predictable platform for the new regulations, their time in the wilderness will extend far beyond the departure of their greatest champion, wasting the peak years of one of the grid's premier talents. The greatest challenge for Mercedes is not technical, it is psychological, letting go of the past and embracing a new way of thinking about aerodynamics. Scuderia Ferrari. Ferrari's tragedy is one of pace versus mental fortitude. They possess the speed, the legendary aura, and now they have assembled an all-star lineup with Charles Leclerc and the incoming Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton. On raw pace, they are often a match for anyone, occasionally setting a qualifying lap that makes the Tifosi believe. Yet every Sunday, that belief is systematically dismantled by errors that feel almost pre-programmed. The team is caught in a psychological trap. They have the fastest car, but the slowest mind under pressure. They panic. Their pit stops are frustratingly inconsistent, and their strategy calls are routinely reactive, often sacrificing track position or tire life in a frantic attempt to cover a rival, rather than dictating the race on their own terms. Fred Vasseur has done an admirable job in restructuring, but the systemic fragility remains. What Ferrari needs, before they can even think about an 8th Hamilton title, is operational and strategic consistency. This isn't a factory flaw, it's a cultural one. They must ruthlessly eliminate the minor errors, the slow wheelgun changes, the confusion over compound choices, the unnecessary double-stack delays. Above all, the race strategy room must be fortified with a strategy firewall, empowering them to make cool, calculated, and proactive decisions, even when Max Verstappen is closing in. Their culture has long been defined by the intense, paralyzing pressure from Maranello, which often leads to fear-based decision-making. That culture must be replaced with one of calm confidence, trust, and flawless execution. If they fail to fix this, the arrival of Hamilton will simply magnify their existing flaws, turning the dream partnership into a nightmarish spectacle of missed opportunities and strategic blunders, ultimately costing Leclerc the championship he is fighting for and forever tainting the twilight of Hamilton's career. The Scarlet Machine is fast enough. Its people must stop beating themselves. The internal clock must stop ticking like a time bomb. McLaren Formula One team. The McLaren narrative is one of a triumphant, spectacular renaissance. Under the focused leadership of Andrea Stella and the backing of Zach Brown, they have completed one of the fastest and most impressive climbs in recent F1 history, going from backmarkers to consistent race-winning threats in a mere 18 months. Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri are perhaps the strongest, most dynamic driver pairing on the grid, already delivering race wins and proving the car's phenomenal potential. They have done the hardest part, establishing the right aerodynamic philosophy and building a core group of technical leaders who understand how to develop the car. Now, they are standing at the absolute threshold of fighting for world championships. But one thing still ties them to the past. What McLaren needs to complete its journey is the final infrastructure upgrade. Despite their trackside excellence, the Woking facility has been hobbled for years by outdated and inadequate tools. Chief among them, a dependency on a third-party wind tunnel for their aerodynamic data, and a simulator that was not fit for their purpose. The completion and full integration of their brand-new cutting-edge wind tunnel and their advanced simulator is the final non-negotiable step. This is not about bragging rights. It's about the speed of iteration. Relying on external tools creates bottlenecks, delays feedback loops, and means their engineers are working with inherently less pure data than their rivals at Red Bull and Mercedes. To close the final, agonizing few tenths to the reigning champions, they need the fastest, most accurate, and most voluminous feedback loop possible, which only their own bespoke hardware can provide. Without this infrastructure fully operational and optimized, the Team McLaren plateauing, wasting the peak talent of Norris and Piastri, and remaining perpetual bridesmaids in the championship fight. The time for the rebuild is over. The time for world-class, dedicated infrastructure is now. Aston Martin, a Ramco F1 team. Aston Martin's journey has been defined by two distinct phases: the ambitious, sky-high rise that stunned the paddock, and the crushing, confusing mid-season fall. Backed by the immense ambition and endless investment of Lawrence Stroll, the team has built a magnificent new factory and successfully poached some of the sport's greatest minds. The signing of Fernando Alonso, who continues to perform at an almost superhuman level deep into his career, validates their potential. Yet, the team's Achilles heel has repeatedly been exposed. They struggle immensely with mid-season development momentum. They start the year strong, capitalizing on stable winter regulations. But as soon as the technical arms race begins, they are rapidly overhauled by rivals like McLaren and Mercedes, who show superior, more effective, cost-effective and more consistent in-season upgrade paths. What Aston Martin needs right now is sustained, focused development stamina. The new factory is beautiful, the personnel are elite, but they must prove they can translate that immense potential into consistent race-by-race performance gains throughout the entire 9-month season. This requires a ruthless prioritization of resources, avoiding the temptation to chase every possible concept, and instead committing to a clear, single-minded development path. They need their engineers to produce upgrades that genuinely deliver what they promise in the wind tunnel, without the lag or the side effects that have plagued their recent cars and forced confusing mid-season U-turns. If they cannot fix this developmental plateau, they risk squandering the twilight brilliance of Fernando Alonso and losing the crucial respect they briefly earned at the top of the grid. Their goal is no longer to surprise the paddock. It is to establish themselves as an unwavering, year-round top-4 competitor, and that requires winning the development war, not just the winner design phase. They need to demonstrate that the massive investment can produce results over a full calendar year. BWT Alpine, F1 team. Alpine is Formula One's textbook example of a team that keeps shooting itself in the foot with corporate interference and short-sighted management. They have the factory resources of Renault, a massive budget, and 2 highly capable, if sometimes volatile, drivers. Yet they are locked in a persistent, depressing cycle of decline, stemming entirely from a failure of leadership and vision. The team has become a revolving door for senior management, with CEOs, team principals, and technical directors being purged with alarming frequency, often after only a few months in the role. This corporate instability has trickled down to the design office and the trackside crew, creating a climate of fear, distrust, and worst of all, a complete lack of technical continuity. Engineering decisions are constantly second-guessed, long-term visions are abandoned overnight, and morale is in the basement. What Alpine needs, more than any aero tweak or engine upgrade, is a ceasefire on managerial turnover. They require a corporate mandate from the highest levels of the Renault Group to install a single, experienced team principal with absolute, untouchable authority and a minimum 5-year contract. This leader must be allowed to set a technical direction and build a cohesive structure without the paralyzing fear of being fired after 3 bad races. The current environment means engineers are designing cars for the management they have, rather than the management they hope to have, resulting in compromise. Until the constant, destructive noise from Ainstone and Viry stops, the team will remain adrift, unable to hold on to talented personnel who inevitably seek saner, more consistent environments elsewhere. Stability is their only upgrade that truly matters, and until they find it, the team will continue to sink, unable to progress beyond midfield mediocrity, wasting the considerable talent of their drivers and the massive financial investment of their parent company. Visa Cash App RB, F1 team VCarb. They exist in a precarious state of perpetual adolescence. As Red Bull's sister team, they benefit immensely from an efficient use of shared components and technical expertise, allowing them to punch above their weight on occasion and score impressive midfield points. However, this umbilical cord to Milton Keynes is also their defining constraint. They are constantly fighting an identity crisis. Are they a genuine independent constructor seeking to climb the grid, or simply a glorified testing platform for Red Bull's junior drivers and technology? This dependency limits their ability to forge a unique technical path and attract top-tier non-Red Bull technical talent who seek genuine autonomy and a seat at the adult table. The recent move to align more closely with the senior team while providing short-term performance gains exacerbates the identity problem and leaves them without a unique technical direction. What VCarb needs is to prove true technical autonomy. The team must visibly and unequivocally commit to designing and building a greater portion of their own car, particularly in the critical aerodynamic and chassis areas. They need a car philosophy distinct from Red Bull's, optimized purely for their own drivers and their specific budget constraints. This is essential for their long-term credibility, for attracting the kind of technical leadership that builds winning teams, and for escaping the perceived status of a B team. If they fail to establish a separate identity, they will remain trapped trapped in a midfield ceiling, forever limited by the necessity of adapting Red Bull designs rather than innovating their own. Their future depends on their ability to step out of the giant shadow cast by the senior team and prove they are a viable entity on their own merits, capable of independent, original thought and design. Williams Racing. The revival of Williams is a story of tradition meeting modernity, a project being meticulously managed by James Vowles, who brought decades of operational excellence from Mercedes. Under his leadership, the team has begun the difficult process of organizational restructuring, bringing a laser-like focus to data analysis, strategic thinking, and, crucially, driver retention. Alex Albon has committed his long-term future to grow, a sign of profound faith in Vowles' vision. The current car, while capable of speed, is a brutal handful in the corners, but the foundation of the team's recovery is now the operational side. Unfortunately, the physical infrastructure of the Grove facility is the team's single greatest handicap, a relic of a bygone era. What Williams needs immediately is a complete factory overhaul and operational depth. The team is fighting the 21st century arms race with 20th century tools. The physical plant, from the outdated machine shop to the antiquated IT infrastructure, is creating massive operational bottlenecks. Outdated equipment means slower, less efficient part manufacturing, less capacity for crash repairs, which proved costly in recent seasons, and compromised quality control. Vowles must secure and execute the planned, multi-year investment plan to rebuild the factory from the ground up, making it a truly modern F1 facility. Until this infrastructure is fully updated, Williams will always struggle with the pace of iteration and the resilience required for a full season campaign. They have the right leadership and the right driver. Now they need the right equipment to match the ambition and finally return the legendary name to consistent, reliable point scoring. The success of the team relies on the success of the construction team working at the factory. MoneyGram Haas F1 team. The Haas F1 story is a deeply frustrating paradox. A team capable of single-lap miracles, followed by the routine heartbreak of Sunday disappointments. Under the new leadership of Ayao Komatsu, the team has shown renewed energy and communication, but the core technical weakness persists. Nico Hülkenberg, a master of qualifying, used to drag the car into Q3, only for the car to then consume its tires at an unsustainable, ruinous rate during the race. This makes every Sunday a strategic nightmare, forcing Hülkenberg and his teammate to drive defensively and often plummeting them out of points contention, turning brilliant Saturdays into painful, inevitable retreats. The car is effectively a qualifying specialist that has a structural inability to manage the full race distance tire demands. What Haas desperately needs is engineering race pace into the design. The technical focus must shift entirely from raw peak qualifying speed to maximizing efficiency, stability, and, critically, tire management over long stints. This requires a fundamental change in the car's aerodynamic philosophy, prioritizing a stable platform that is kind to the Pirelli compounds over aggressive high downforce designs that chew through the rubber. They need to find a car concept that allows the drivers to attack, not just manage, the race. Continuing to build a qualifying hero that is a Sunday villain is a pointless exercise that wastes the talent of their drivers and the goodwill of their sponsors. Komatsu must demand that the engineers deliver a car that can hold position and fight consistently on Sunday, even if it means sacrificing half a tenth in qualifying. The time for single-lap glory is over. The time for race day resilience is now. For that is the only way to generate meaningful points. Stake F1 Team Sauber. It is a team in a unique and challenging state of flux, essentially operating as a holding company for the massive influx of Audi factory funding and infrastructure set to arrive in 2026. This two-year transition period is proving difficult. While the future is bright, the present is marked by operational inefficiencies and basic errors that undermine their already limited on-track performance. The most visible and damning failures have occurred in the pit lane, where routine pit stops have frequently been among the slowest on the grid, costing the drivers precious points and track position. This lack of polish makes the team look perpetually unprepared for the massive investment coming their way. What Stake F1 Team Kick Sauber needs is flawless operational execution. They must use the remaining time before the Audi rebrand to ruthlessly eliminate every single basic error. The pit crew needs to drill until they are consistently one of the fastest teams on the grid. The strategy calls need to be simple, correct, and confident. They must elevate the overall operational standard of the current organization to prove to the incoming Audi management and engineers that the Swiss base is a worthy foundation for a top-tier factory effort. Every slow stop, every strategy blunder, every missed opportunity is a red flag to the new owners. Their success over the next year is not measured by where they finish in the championship, but by the operational professionalism they demonstrate. They must act like a factory team now, so they can be ready to compete as one later. Reliability, precision, and efficiency in the garage are their only necessary upgrades before the main event arrives. The future is promised, but the present must be earned.